The alarm bells screamed through Kepler Station like angry metal birds. Commander Jake Morrison jumped from his chair in the command center, coffee spilling across his desk. The red warning lights painted everything the color of blood. "What's happening?" Jake shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Ben Parker's fingers flew over his control panel. His face was pale. "Sir, we're getting a transmission. It's coming from deep space, but the signal is really weak." "From who?" "That's the strange part, sir. It's Zephyrian." The command center went quiet except for the beeping computers. Jake felt his stomach drop. The Zephyrians hadn't contacted humanity in 20 years, not since the peace treaty was signed with their blood still fresh on human hands. "Put it through," Jake said. The main screen flickered to life. The image was broken and fuzzy, but Jake could see a tall figure with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. The alien's golden eyes looked tired and desperate. This was Ambassador Veltar, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. But now he looked like a broken old man. "Humans of Kepler Station," Veltar began. His voice cracked like dried leaves. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. I speak for what remains of our people." Jake's hands turned into fists. The last time he heard that name, the Zephyrians were burning human colonies and taking prisoners. "We are dying," Veltar continued. "Our empire, our people, our worlds. All of it is being destroyed by something we cannot stop. We call them the Devourers." Dr. Lisa Grant stepped closer to the screen. She was the station's expert on alien life. Her brown eyes studied every detail of the ambassador's face. "Commander, look at him!" "He's not lying. He's terrified." Veltar's image flickered again. Behind him, Jake could see the inside of a damaged ship. Sparks flew from broken equipment. Other Zephyrians moved around like ghosts, their heads down in defeat. "The Devourers came from the dark space beyond our borders," Veltar said. "They are machines, but not like any we have seen. They eat everything. Planets, stars, ships, people. They turn it all into more of themselves." The ambassador's 4 hands shook as he held up a data pad. "We will send you our records. You will see what they have done to us. 12 of our greatest worlds are gone. Just gone. Empty space where millions lived and worked and loved." Jake looked around the command center. His crew was listening with wide eyes. Nobody spoke. "Our fleets cannot stop them," Veltar continued. "Our weapons pass through them like they are not there. Our shields mean nothing to them. We ran from system to system, but they follow us. They never stop. They never get tired. They just eat and grow stronger." Dr. Grant was already working at her station downloading the data. "Commander, the information is coming through now. Initial scans show massive energy readings. These aren't normal weapons." Veltar's golden eyes looked directly at Jake through the screen. For a moment, the proud ambassador disappeared. All that was left was a scared old alien begging for help. "Once we were strong," Veltar said. "Once we ruled over many worlds and many peoples. We thought we were the greatest power in the galaxy. We were wrong." Jake felt a cold anger in his chest. He remembered the stories from his father, who fought in the Zephyrian War. He remembered the pictures of human children taken from their families. "Our population was 60 billion across our empire," Veltar continued. "Now we are less than 1 billion. Most of our ships are damaged. Our weapons are broken. Our people are hungry and afraid." The transmission started to break up. Veltar's image came and went like a bad dream. "We know what we did to your people," the ambassador said. "We know you have no reason to help us. We know we showed you no mercy when we were strong." Lieutenant Parker looked at Jake with confusion. "Sir, is he really asking us to help them?" "But we are asking anyway," Veltar said. "We are begging. Our children are dying. Our worlds are ash. We have nowhere else to go." Dr. Grant looked up from her station. Her face was serious. "Commander, this data is real. I'm seeing 12 star systems that show signs of complete destruction. Not war damage, complete consumption. Everything is gone." Veltar's image became clearer for a moment. Jake could see tears running down the alien's face. "Real tears. Humans of Earth and all your colonies," Veltar said. "We beg for your mercy. Help us survive what we cannot face alone. We will give you anything you ask. Our technology, our remaining ships, our knowledge of the galaxy, all of it." The transmission started to fail completely. Veltar's voice became weak and distant. "Please," he whispered. "We know we do not deserve it, but please, help us." The screen went black. The command center was silent except for the quiet hum of computers. Jake stood there staring at the empty screen. His mind was full of old memories and new questions. "Sir?" Lieutenant Parker asked quietly. "What do we do?" Jake thought about his father's stories. Stories of burning human colonies and families torn apart. Stories of Zephyrian soldiers who laughed while human cities burned. Stories of children who were never seen again. But he also thought about Dr. Grant's data. 12 worlds completely destroyed. 1 billion people running for their lives from something that ate everything in its path. "Send a message to Earth," Jake said finally. "Priority Alpha. The President needs to see this immediately." "What about the Zephyrians, sir?" Ben asked. Jake looked at the empty screen where Veltar's desperate face had been. "Tell them we received their message. Tell them we are considering their request. That's all?" Jake's jaw was tight. "That's all. For now." As his crew got to work, Jake walked to the observation window. Outside, the stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere out there, ancient machines were eating entire worlds. And somewhere else, the people who had once been humanity's greatest enemy were running and dying and begging for help. The irony was not lost on him. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had once made humans kneel, was now on its knees begging humans for mercy. Jake wondered what humanity would choose to do with that power. He wondered if they would be better than the Zephyrians had been, or if they would be exactly the same. 46 years ago, Haven Prime was the most beautiful human colony in the galaxy. Captain Ryan Burke remembered the morning it all ended. He was having breakfast with his wife on the balcony of their home when the first explosions lit up the sky. The orange and red flames looked almost pretty against the blue morning sky of Haven Prime. Then the screaming started. "Ryan," his wife Carol had shouted, pointing up at the sky. "What are those?" The black shapes coming down from orbit looked like metal tears falling from heaven. But they weren't tears. They were Zephyrian attack ships, and they were falling toward every major city on Haven Prime. Ryan had grabbed his uniform and run. As a captain in the Colonial Defense Force, he knew what those ships meant. War had come to Haven Prime, and they weren't ready for it. The colony had 300,000 people. Most of them were families who came to Haven Prime to start new lives. They grew food, built homes, raised children, and dreamed of the future. They weren't soldiers. They weren't warriors. They were just people trying to live in peace. The Zephyrians didn't care. Lieutenant Amy Foster was 22 years old when she watched her world burn. She stood in the command center of the Colonial Defense Headquarters, watching the main screen show city after city going dark. "Captain Burke," she called out, "New Angeles is gone. Central City is gone. The farming districts are all burning." Ryan looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed Zephyrian ships everywhere. Green dots showed human positions. There were a lot more red than green. "How many ships do we have left?" Ryan asked. 12 fighters and 1 patrol boat, Amy said. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. "The Zephyrians have over 200 ships in orbit." The building shook as plasma bombs fell nearby. Through the windows, Ryan could see the city burning. People were running in the streets, carrying their children and whatever they could grab. "Sir?" Amy said quietly. "My brother Danny is in the civilian shelter downtown. The Zephyrians are heading straight for it." Ryan wanted to save everyone. He wanted to fight back and win. But he knew the truth. Haven Prime was lost. All they could do now was try to save as many people as possible. "All units, this is Captain Burke," he said into his radio. "Begin evacuation procedures. Get the civilians to the transport ships. Don't try to fight unless you have to." But the Zephyrians had other plans. Amy watched the main screen as Zephyrian ground troops landed near the civilian shelters. They moved like metal spiders with 4 arms and weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "Captain," she said, her voice breaking, "they're not just attacking military targets. They're going after the shelters." Ryan looked at the screen and felt his heart turn to ice. The Zephyrian soldiers were surrounding the civilian shelters. But they weren't firing on them. They were setting up some kind of equipment. "What are they doing?" Amy asked. The answer came from a Zephyrian broadcast that filled every communication channel on Haven Prime. The voice was cold and mechanical. "Humans of Haven Prime," the voice said, "your leaders have refused to surrender your terraforming technology to the Zephyrian Empire. This is the consequence of their choice." On the screen, Amy watched as Zephyrian soldiers began loading human civilians into transport ships. Men, women, children, all of them were being taken. They're not killing them, Ryan said, trying to understand. No, Amy whispered. They're taking them. The broadcast continued. These humans will serve the Empire in labor camps until their government agrees to our demands. Resistance is futile. Surrender is your only option. Amy's radio crackled. Lieutenant Foster, this is Sergeant Martinez at Shelter 7. They've got my whole family. My kids, my wife. They're loading them onto the ships. More voices filled the radio. Parents screaming about their children. Children crying for their parents. Families torn apart by alien hands. Amy looked at Captain Burke. Sir, we have to do something. Ryan's face was hard as stone. He knew they couldn't fight a whole Zephyrian fleet. But he also knew they couldn't just watch their people be taken. All fighters, this is Captain Burke. Attack the transport ships. Don't let them take our people. The 12 human fighters launched from the defense base. They were small and fast, but the Zephyrian ships were bigger and stronger. One by one, the human fighters were shot down. Amy watched on the screen as the last human fighter exploded in a ball of fire. That was Lieutenant Jackson, she said quietly. He had 2 kids. The Zephyrian transports continued loading human civilians. Thousands of people, men and women who just wanted to live peaceful lives, children who had never hurt anyone. Captain Burke, Amy said. I can see Danny's group. They're loading them onto Transport Ship 7. Ryan put his hand on Amy's shoulder. I'm sorry. Through the windows, they could see the transport ships rising into the sky. Each one carried hundreds of human prisoners. Amy watched Transport Ship 7 disappear into the clouds, taking her brother with it. The Zephyrian broadcast came again. Haven Prime is now under Imperial control. All remaining humans will report to processing centers for assignment. Resistance will be met with death. Captain Burke looked around the command center at his remaining officers, young men and women who had signed up to protect their colony. Now their colony was gone and there was nothing left to protect. Sir, Amy said. Orders? Ryan thought for a long moment. Outside, the city was still burning. Zephyrian ships patrolled the sky like metal vultures. The life they had built on Haven Prime was over. We evacuate whoever we can, Ryan said. We save who we can save, and we remember who we couldn't. Amy nodded. But inside, she was making a different promise. She would remember her brother Danny. She would remember the families torn apart. She would remember the children who cried for their parents as alien soldiers dragged them away. Most of all, she would remember that the Zephyrians had shown no mercy, no compassion, no kindness. They had taken everything and everyone they could, and they had smiled while doing it. Years later, when Amy Foster became Admiral Foster, she still remembered that day. She remembered the sound of children crying. She remembered the sight of families being separated. She remembered how the Zephyrians had laughed at human pain. She remembered, and she waited. The Zephyrians had taught humanity a valuable lesson that day on Haven Prime. They taught them what happened to species that were weak. They taught them what mercy looked like in a galaxy full of predators. They taught them that mercy was something only the strong could afford to give, and something only the strong could choose to withhold. Admiral Foster never forgot those lessons. She spent 46 years making sure humanity would never be weak again. Now, as she sat in her command chair aboard the flagship Retribution, she wondered if the Zephyrians remembered Haven Prime. She wondered if they remembered the mercy they had shown, because she certainly did. President Nicole Adams stood at the window of her office, looking out at the lights of New Geneva. Earth's capital city stretched for miles in every direction, its towers reaching toward the stars. 46 years ago, this was just another city. Now it was the center of the most powerful human government in history. The emergency meeting had been called for midnight. Around the long table sat the most important people in the Terran government. Admiral Amy Foster, her gray hair tied back and her uniform perfect. General Chris Martinez, scarred from a dozen battles. Senator Paul Walker, young and idealistic. Intelligence Chief Dr. Kate Sullivan, quiet and dangerous. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Nicole said, turning from the window. The Zephyrian Empire, which enslaved our people and destroyed our colonies, is asking us to save them from extinction. Admiral Foster's voice was cold as space. That's correct, Madam President. Ambassador Veltar transmitted a plea for assistance. They claim to be facing an enemy called the Devourers. Senator Walker leaned forward. We've confirmed the data they sent. 12 Zephyrian worlds have been completely destroyed. We're talking about the deaths of billions of people. The same people who killed millions of our people, Admiral Foster replied. The same empire that took human children as slaves. General Martinez spread a holographic display across the table. It showed the galaxy with red zones marking devourer attacks. The threat appears to be real. These devourer machines consume everything in their path. Planets, space stations, even entire star systems. Dr. Sullivan spoke up for the first time. Her voice was quiet, but everyone listened carefully. There's something else. Something the Zephyrians don't know we know. Nicole raised an eyebrow. Go on. The Devourers aren't attacking randomly. They're following specific energy patterns. Patterns that match our terraforming technology. The room went silent. Nicole felt a chill run down her spine. What are you saying, Kate? I'm saying the Devourers are tracking the same technology the Zephyrians tried to steal from us 46 years ago. The technology that started the war. Admiral Foster's jaw tightened. Are you telling us these machines are coming for us? Dr. Sullivan nodded. Long-range sensors show Devourer Scouts probing systems near Zephyrian space. They're following the energy signatures toward this part of the galaxy. Toward us, Senator Walker looked shocked. Then we have to help the Zephyrians. If we work together, maybe we can stop these things. With what? Admiral Foster snapped. The Zephyrians had the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. If they can't stop the Devourers, what makes you think we can? General Martinez highlighted several sections of the holographic display. Our fleet is stronger than people think. The Prometheus-class battleships, the new plasma cannons, the quantum torpedo systems. We've been building for 46 years. Building for revenge, Admiral Foster said. Building to make sure no one could ever do to us what the Zephyrians did. Nicole walked back to the table and sat down. Paul, make your case. Why should we help them? Senator Walker took a deep breath. Because it's the right thing to do. Because we're better than they were. If we let them die when we could help, how are we different from them? We're different because we earned our strength, Admiral Foster said. We didn't steal it from others. We didn't enslave children to build our cities. But if we refuse to help, we're letting billions of innocent people die, Paul argued. Not just Zephyrian soldiers, families, children. People who had nothing to do with the war. General Martinez brought up tactical displays. Even if we wanted to help, the military situation is complicated. We'd have to move our entire fleet into Zephyrian space. That would leave Earth and our colonies undefended. Dr. Sullivan cleared her throat. There's another problem. If we reveal our fleet strength to fight the Devourers, we also reveal it to any other species that might want to attack us later. Nicole looked around the table at each of her advisors. Amy, what's your recommendation? Admiral Foster's eyes were hard. Let them burn. They showed no mercy to our people. They took our children and worked them to death in their factories. They destroyed entire colonies for the crime of wanting to be free. Now they're facing the same extinction they brought to others. That's not justice, Senator Walker said. That's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing, Admiral Foster replied. Nicole was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, she could see transport ships carrying supplies to the outer colonies. Ships full of human families going to build new lives among the stars. Families that existed because humanity had survived the Zephyrian War. Kate, she said finally, show me the projections. If we do nothing, what happens to us? Dr. Sullivan activated another display. The Devourers will finish consuming Zephyrian space in approximately 18 months. After that, they'll follow the energy signatures toward human space. Our colonies will be their next targets. And if we help the Zephyrians, we might buy ourselves time. But we'd also be revealing our strength and our locations to an enemy that has already proven it can defeat the most powerful empire in the galaxy. General Martinez leaned back in his chair. It's a no-win situation. Fight the Devourers now and probably lose. Wait for them to come to us and definitely lose. Nicole stood up and walked to a wall display showing the human colonies. Dozens of worlds where millions of people lived and worked and raised their children. People who trusted their government to protect them. There's a third option, she said quietly. Everyone looked at her. We answer their plea, Nicole said, but not the way they expect. Admiral Foster raised an eyebrow. Explain. Nicole turned to face the table. They begged for mercy. We give them the same mercy they gave us. You want us to refuse? Paul asked. No, Nicole said. I want us to respond exactly as they would have responded to us. They taught us what mercy means in this galaxy. Now we return the lesson. Dr. Sullivan was already working on her datapad. I see where you're going with this. It could work. What could work? General Martinez asked. Nicole smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. Amy, prepare the fleet. We're going to answer the Zephyrians' plea for help. Admiral Foster looked confused. I thought you said... I said we would give them the same mercy they gave us, Nicole interrupted. The exact same mercy. Nothing more. Nothing less. Understanding dawned in Admiral Foster's eyes. Madam President, that's brilliant. Senator Walker looked back and forth between them. What are you two talking about? Dr. Sullivan looked up from her datapad. We're going to save them, Paul. Just not the way they think. And in doing so, General Martinez said, beginning to understand, we're going to solve our devourer problem. Nicole nodded. The Zephyrians taught us that mercy is a luxury only the strong can afford. They taught us that the weak deserve whatever happens to them. They taught us that survival is the only thing that matters. She looked around the table at each of her advisors. It's time to return the favor. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a gathering storm. Admiral Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the TCS Retribution, watching the main screen as the Zephyrian refugee fleet came into view. What she saw made her stomach turn, but not with pity. Hundreds of damaged ships drifted in space like broken toys. Most were civilian transports barely holding together. Some were military vessels, but their weapons were dark and their hulls were cracked. These were the last survivors of an empire that once ruled over dozens of star systems. Admiral? Captain Danny Brooks called from the bridge of the TCS Vengeance. We're receiving multiple transmissions from the Zephyrian fleet. They're asking for immediate assistance. Amy looked at the tactical display. The human fleet numbered 200 ships. Every vessel was armed with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, energy shields that could stop anything the galaxy could throw at them. The Zephyrian refugees had nothing. Put me through to the entire Zephyrian fleet, Amy said. All frequencies. Lieutenant Mark Johnson worked at the communications station. You're connected, Admiral. Amy took a deep breath. Through the view screen, she could see the broken ships floating in the darkness. Inside those ships were millions of Zephyrians. Men, women, children, the last survivors of their species. This is Admiral Amy Foster of the Terran Fleet, she began. Her voice was calm and cold. We have received your request for assistance. The response came immediately. Ambassador Veltar's face appeared on the screen, his golden eyes bright with hope. Admiral Foster, thank the stars you came. We have wounded who need medical attention. Our ships are damaged and our supplies are running low. The Devourers destroyed our last supply depot 3 days ago. Amy listened without expression. Behind the ambassador, she could see other Zephyrians watching hopefully. They looked tired and scared. They looked like the human refugees who had fled Haven Prime 46 years ago. Ambassador, Amy said, before we discuss assistance, there are some things we need to address. Veltar nodded eagerly. Of course, anything you need. Our historical records, our star charts, our remaining technology, all of it is yours if you help us. Amy turned to Captain Brooks. Danny, begin the historical transmission. What transmission? Veltar asked, confusion in his voice. The answer came as every screen in the Zephyrian fleet began displaying human historical records. Images of Haven Prime burning, videos of human children being loaded onto Zephyrian transport ships, audio recordings of families begging for mercy as they were torn apart. Veltar's face went pale as he watched the images. Admiral, we know what we did. That's why we're so grateful that you came to help us. Amy's voice remained steady. You asked for mercy, Ambassador. Here is our answer. The images continued. Burning cities, enslaved humans working in alien factories, children who died far from home, never seeing their families again. We offer you the same mercy you showed the children of Haven Prime, Amy said. The same compassion you gave the families of New Boston Colony. The same quarter you granted our people when they begged for their lives. Veltar's hope began to turn to fear. Admiral, please. We know we were wrong. We know we caused you pain. But we're different now. We're not the empire we used to be. Amy looked at the tactical display. The human fleet had the Zephyrian refugees completely surrounded. Every human ship had its weapons powered and ready. You taught us what mercy means in this galaxy, Amy continued. You taught us that strength is the only currency that matters. You taught us that the weak deserve whatever happens to them. Colonel Maria Santos spoke from the TCS Justice. Admiral, should we begin the bombardment? The question hung in space like a death sentence. On the Zephyrian ships, Amy could see panic spreading. People running to escape pods, families holding each other. No, Amy said finally. We are not them. Beltar's relief was visible. Thank you, Admiral. Thank you for showing us the mercy we did not show you. Amy's laugh was cold as space. I never said we would show you mercy, Ambassador. I said we would show you the same mercy you showed us. She nodded to Lieutenant Johnson. Begin broadcasting the coordinates. Data packages began transmitting to every ship in the Zephyrian fleet. Star charts showing uninhabited systems along the galaxy's outer rim. Worlds without resources, without strategic value, without hope. These are the coordinates of empty systems along the galactic rim, Amy explained. Systems so far from civilization that even the Devourers might not find you. Veltar looked at the coordinates with growing horror. These are wasteland systems. No planets, no resources. We couldn't survive out there. You have 72 hours to reach them, Amy said. After that, the Devourers will arrive here. We will not help you fight them. We will not shield you from them. We will not save you from them. The Ambassador's golden eyes filled with tears. You're abandoning us to die. Amy shook her head. We're giving you what you never gave us, Ambassador. A choice. Captain Brooks's voice came over the comm. All Zephyrian vessels are receiving the coordinates, Admiral. Some of their ships are already moving. Amy watched as the refugee fleet began to break apart. Some ships immediately jumped to hyperspace, heading for the rim worlds. Others hesitated, hoping for better options that wouldn't come. Admiral, Veltar pleaded one last time. Our children, they had nothing to do with the war. Please don't let them die for our mistakes. Amy thought about her brother Danny, taken from Haven Prime when he was just 16. She thought about all the human children who had died in Zephyrian labor camps, children who had begged for mercy and received none. Your children will have the same chance our children had, she said. The chance to run. The chance to hide. The chance to survive if they're strong enough and lucky enough. She gestured to Lieutenant Johnson. Cut transmission. The screen went dark. Around them, the Zephyrian fleet continued its desperate exodus to the rim worlds. Some ships wouldn't make it. Their engines were too damaged, their fuel too low. But others would reach the wasteland systems and maybe, just maybe, find a way to survive. Captain Brooks appeared on the communications screen. Admiral, the fleet is asking for orders. Do we follow them to make sure they reach the rim? Amy looked out at the stars where the Zephyrians were disappearing one by one. No, our job here is done. What about the Devourers? Amy smiled for the first time in days. The Devourers are no longer our problem, Danny. They're about to become our solution. Colonel Santos's voice came over the comm from the TCS Justice. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching this position. The Devourers will be here in 60 hours. Perfect timing, Amy said. All ships prepare for Phase 2. As the last Zephyrian ship jumped to hyperspace, Amy looked out at the empty space they left behind. The human fleet hung in the darkness like predators waiting for prey, but they weren't waiting for the Zephyrians. They were waiting for something much more dangerous, something that ate entire civilizations and turned them into more of itself, something that was about to learn why humanity had survived, when so many other species had not. The Devourers were coming, and Admiral Amy Foster was ready for them. 6 months after the Zephyrians fled to the rim worlds, the trap was finally ready. Admiral Amy Foster stood in the command center of the TCS Retribution, watching the final preparations. Around her, the best minds in the Terran fleet worked at their stations. This was the moment they had been preparing for since the day they let the Zephyrians run. Admiral, Commander Tony Phillips reported from the science vessel TCS Discovery. All quantum barriers are in position. The Kepler maze is complete. Amy nodded. The Kepler maze was humanity's greatest achievement and their most desperate gamble. 50 star systems connected by artificial gravity wells and quantum barriers. It looked like a natural stellar formation, but it was really the largest trap ever built. Dr. Clark report, Amy said. Dr. Susan Clark looked up from her instrument panel. Her face was tired but determined. The energy beacons are broadcasting perfectly. The Devourers should detect the terraforming signatures from halfway across the galaxy. The plan was simple and brilliant. Instead of running from the Devourers, humanity had decided to lead them into a trap. They had spent 6 months setting up fake terraforming installations throughout the Kepler region. Each one broadcast the exact energy signature that attracted the Devourers. Long-range sensors showed the Devourer fleet approaching, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez reported. They're following the energy trail exactly as predicted. Amy looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed hundreds of Devourer machines moving through space like a metal plague. Each machine was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and sensors and the grinding apparatus they used to consume entire worlds. How many? Amy asked. Estimated 1,200 individual units, Sarah replied. It's their entire fleet. Captain Danny Brooks spoke from the TCS Vengeance. Admiral, are you sure about this? If the trap doesn't work, we'll have led them straight to human space. Amy thought about that. If they failed, the Devourers would consume every human world in the galaxy. Earth, the colonies, everything. Billions of people would die because she had chosen to fight instead of run. But she also thought about Haven Prime, about her brother Danny, taken by aliens who showed no mercy. About the lesson the Zephyrians had taught humanity 46 years ago. The trap will work, she said. It has to. The first Devourer scouts entered the Kepler region 2 hours later. Amy watched on the main screen as the massive machines moved between the stars, following the false energy signatures deeper into the maze. They're taking the bait, Dr. Clark reported. All units are moving toward the central nexus points. The Devourers looked like metal spiders the size of cities. Their hulls were covered in grinding wheels and cutting lasers designed to slice apart planets. Energy beams extended from them like tentacles, reaching out to taste the false terraforming signals. Admiral, Commander Phillips called from the Discovery, we're detecting some kind of communication between the Devourer units. They might be realizing it's a trap. Amy felt her heart skip. If the Devourers figured out the deception too early, they would scatter across the galaxy. Humanity would never get another chance like this. Hold position, she ordered. Let them come deeper. More Devourer machines poured into the Kepler region, hundreds of them, following the energy trails toward what they thought were rich feeding grounds. The quantum barriers were invisible to their sensors, designed to look like natural gravitational phenomena. 1,200 units now inside the perimeter, Sarah reported. They're spreading out across all 50 systems. Amy watched the tactical display as red dots filled the trap. Each dot represented a machine that had consumed entire civilizations. Machines that had eaten the Zephyrian Empire and were now looking for their next meal. Dr. Clark, Amy said quietly, begin the final phase. Dr. Clark's fingers moved across her control panel. Deep in the Kepler region, hidden gravitational generators began to power up. The quantum barriers started to shift, changing from invisible walls into visible energy fields. Admiral, Commander Phillips shouted. The Devourers are detecting the barriers. They're trying to escape. On the main screen, Amy could see the massive machines suddenly changing direction. They had realized they were trapped. Some rushed toward the barriers. Others tried to find gaps in the maze, but there were no gaps. Now, Amy said. Dr. Clark pressed the final button. The quantum barriers collapsed inward like the fist of an angry god. 50 star systems compressed into a space smaller than Earth's moon. The gravitational forces were beyond anything nature had ever created. The Devourer machines screamed. Amy didn't know machines could scream, but these did. Electronic shrieks filled the communication channels as 1,200 world-eating monsters were crushed together and torn apart at the subatomic level. Barrier collapse is proceeding normally, Dr. Clark reported, her voice amazed. Gravitational implosion is complete. All Devourer signatures have been eliminated. The main screen showed empty space where the Kepler region used to be. 50 star systems had been sacrificed to create the trap, but it had worked. The threat that had consumed the Zephyrian Empire and terrorized the galaxy was gone. Admiral, Sarah said quietly, long-range sensors are detecting something else. Amy looked at the new display. Scattered across the galaxy, tiny signals were appearing. Weak transmissions from the rim worlds where the Zephyrians had fled. They're still alive, Danny Brooks said with surprise. Some of them made it, Amy nodded. She had known some would survive. The wasteland systems were harsh and empty, but they were far from the Devourers. The Zephyrians who reached them would have to start over with nothing. No empire, no advanced technology, no slaves to do their work. They would have to learn to survive the same way humanity had learned. Commander Phillips, Amy said. What's the status of the surviving Zephyrian settlements? Approximately 50,000 survivors across 12 different systems, Tony reported. They're building basic shelters and trying to establish food production. It looks like they're going to make it. Amy walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was different now. The Devourers were gone. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. In their place, humanity had become the strongest power in the galaxy. But they had become strong without conquest. Without enslaving other species, without taking children from their families, Admiral, Dr. Clark asked. What are your orders regarding the Zephyrian survivors? Amy thought about Ambassador Veltar and his desperate plea for mercy. She thought about the tears in his golden eyes as he begged for help. She thought about the choice humanity had made. We monitor them, she said finally. We make sure they don't become a threat again, but we don't interfere with their survival. That's more than they would have done for us, Danny pointed out. Amy smiled. That's the point, Danny. We're not them. We never were. She turned back to the command center. All ships set course for Earth. It's time to go home. As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, Amy made a final log entry. Admiral's log, final entry. The Zephyrians begged for mercy and we answered without mercy, but we did not answer without justice. We gave them exactly what they gave us, a chance to run, a chance to hide. A chance to survive if they were strong enough and smart enough and lucky enough. She paused, thinking about the long road that had brought them to this moment. They taught us that mercy is something only the strong can afford to give. They taught us that compassion is a luxury that the weak cannot provide. They taught us that in a galaxy full of predators, only the strongest survive. Amy looked out at the stars rushing past the ship. Today we proved we learned their lessons well. We showed them the same mercy they showed us. We gave them the same chances they gave us. We treated them exactly as they treated us. She smiled one more time. And in doing so, we proved that humanity is better than they ever were, because we had the strength to choose justice over revenge. We had the power to show mercy to those who showed us none. We had the wisdom to break the cycle of cruelty that has ruled this galaxy for too long. The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind an empty battlefield and a galaxy forever changed. Behind them, on the rim worlds, Zephyrian children looked up at alien stars and dreamed of the future. They would grow up in a galaxy where their species was no longer mighty, where they would have to earn their place through work and wisdom rather than fear and conquest. They would grow up free, just as humanity had always intended.